We're talking with Nora Rowan-Schmidt, Executive Director of the Viroqua Chamber Main Street, and I am Luke Zahm, owner and chef of the Driftless Cafe in Viroqua, Wisconsin. You are listening to 54665, podcast relevant to all things Viroqua, small business ownership, rural development, economic development, and,
Yeah, good stuff.
I think I saw you in the cafe this weekend, did I not?
I was there, yes. Networking.
Networking on Friday?
Yeah.
Is that what it's called? Yeah. When I pop out of the kitchen at 9 o'clock, hey! no! I'm going to send you an email.
It was not like that.
You were not like that, no. You would never be like that.
Never, ever.
No, it was a good time, though.
Always good for all of us to get together and compare notes.
Compare notes. You know, with 3 executive directors sitting in a room, if you had to kind of loosely define your role, and earlier you were like Viroqua Chamber Main Street, talking about that. Mm-hmm. What does a day in the life of the executive director look like?
There is no specific day in the life formula. Every single day is completely different. Okay.
Give me just like a brief overview, like, say it's Monday. Obviously, we don't want to give this actually, any date and time, so edit that out.
Sure.
But, day to day, like Monday morning rolls around. What does a day in the life of Nora Rowan-Schmidt look like?
In my position, my job is to be the support system for lots and lots of businesses, different types of businesses, different types of entities, nonprofit, for-profit. So first thing in the morning is drinking coffee and checking email and making sure nothing is on fire.
Sure.
And then moving through the day, offering support and advice and doing a tremendous amount of promotion. Social media, I live on Facebook. It's not my favorite thing to live on, but it's a necessary tool for small businesses and for organizations. We've developed a really, really strong following, which is one of the reasons that people are paying so much attention to Viroqua. Any given post, even if it's something really simple, gets as many as 17,000 or 18,000 impressions. And for a little community, that's a really big deal.
Yeah, that's like 4 times the population,
mm-hmm.
Sometimes 5. Yep. Yeah, I think that there's a couple things in there that, are really important to kind of hit on. That putting out fires, I can say that as a small business owner, I spend a tremendous amount of time, and it causes no small amount of anxiety, the putting out the fires piece. Mm-hmm. Most days I will have a legal pad going with, the fires that I know that I have to put out. Right. The tasks that when you wake up in the morning, you have to accomplish. But I also try and give time and space between those tasks for any of those fires. And I think that one of the resources that sometimes is undervalued in your position, or for the position of executive directors for a lot of nonprofits that are pro-business, as a small business owner, sometimes I feel like I'm screaming into the wind. Mm-hmm. Right? There's going to be problems that need solutions. I know that as a restaurateur or as a chef, there aren't always cut and dry answers. There's no manual for making a business work.
No.
But I do use the resource of the Viroqua Chamber Main Street very, very frequently. Somebody to bounce ideas off of, or someone to mm-hmm. say like, hey, I'm thinking about this promotional tool. How do we best develop this? Or, I have this idea of an expansion or some way I want to shift my business and grow it. Mm-hmm. Can you help me find the resources to make that expectation a reality?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why when people ask me, what do you do exactly? In my head, most of the time I'm thinking, how much time do you have?
Sure.
Because we do so many different things. I'm really, really proud of the fact that our office and our organization are viewed as an approachable resource in mm-hmm. Viroqua. It's mm-hmm. something that really matters. I've had people sitting on the floor in my office crying. I've had people coming in and just needing to tell a few jokes and laugh it off to move on with their day. And I've had people, you know, giving me probably more information than I need because they're so comfortable with the Viroqua Chamber Main Street and how we support them. So it's a lot to balance sometimes. Some of this is really heavy stuff.
Sure. Specifically when so much identity is tied into small businesses and business owners.
Yep.
You know, I often will succumb to the idea that who I am is tied into my business. Yep. And it's a really, really sometimes caustic relationship that I develop with myself. But I have been all three of those examples. I don't know if I've cried on your floor yet, but I've definitely been close. And, you know, I definitely have been the person walking in just needing to break up my day a little bit to drop some really terrible jokes on you. As a matter of fact.
Do you have one?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
So it's you know, I think it's a very Wisconsin themed joke maybe, but a bear walks into a bar, right?
Right.
Okay. Bear sits down on a bar stool, nods to the bartender. The bartender comes over and says, "What can I get you?" Bear looks at the bartender and says, "Hey, bartender, what's the deal with..." Bartender looks at the bear and says, "Hey, what's with the big paws?" Get it?
Got it.
So, I've definitely been all three of those things. And I think it is like your local chamber, your local Main Street organization ends up being a sounding board for lots of good ideas, lots of mediocre ideas, a couple bad ideas, but it's a way to kind of filter through.
It is. And, you know, being in the position for 4 years, I've also gotten used to the role of being the punching bag, which is a really challenging role. And I know that a lot of my colleagues deal with that as well. Sometimes you get to see people at their best and at their worst.
Yeah.
Right?
It's kind of like right now, you with your aqua blue hat and, you know, alligator green sunglasses.
Are you claiming that this is my worst?
I didn't say anything. I could have been trending towards the best here. You don't know.
Right. Yes. It could be the best. You know, and maybe the listeners do need to know that for me, being on air and live, it feels very comfortable to have sunglasses on.
Sure.
Howard Stern style.
Oh, Howard Stern style.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a role model. You know.
I'm not saying he's a role model. I'm just saying that I think I understand where he's coming from.
Sure.
It's a layer of protection.
A layer of protection. You know, and I guess I want to.
He's sensitive.
I want to ask you about that a little bit because you said you kind of live on Facebook. And in this day and age, to live and die on social media, you know, some of the younger listeners can probably definitely identify with this, but you know, even anybody who's engaged right now in social media, there is a layer of vulnerability, right?
Sure.
That you kind of put something out there. Some people might take offense to it. Some people might love it. You know, how do you find that in the business arena, or like when you're talking about promotions and things that might have an impression on 17,000 people in one shot? What is that like?
It's a huge responsibility.
Sure.
You know, and it's also, as a human being, I don't feel that I'm really using social media for anything other than a marketing tool at this point. So even though there are lots of things that I have opinions about, and I would love to have a page that was more intimate and contain just my immediate friend groups and family so that I could have bigger, larger opinions about politics, women's issues, all kinds of different things. I keep things really, really neutral on purpose. So everything is very promotional only. So my social media self is not necessarily me.
Sure.
And there is a layer of protection in that. And I think, especially in this day and age, it is so important for businesses and organizations who are working with large groups of people who have really different views about a lot of different things in the world. It's really important to approach many, many different subjects with caution. And in my case, I have just decided to not talk about those things.
Sure. That makes perfect sense. And as a business owner, we always try and steer away from that as well. Mm-hmm. Anything that might be polarizing. Yep. Now, I can say that also because I do have a little bit of a media presence myself. I film a lot of television. I've done some filming for the Food Network and filming for PBS. I have ongoing engagements with that. Do you ever find that there's like a little bit of a dichotomy that happens in, not in your personality, but does it become harder for you as you go forward? And I'm speaking mainly, to you, but also from the perspective of a business owner, to have to wear both of those hats. Like as a human, I feel so strongly and impassioned in one direction. Oftentimes I won't express that direction because I have to wear that different hat.
Right. Mm-hmm.
How conflicted are you about that? Like when you're talking about your social media presence?
That's a tough question, but there's a little bit of conflict. There are a lot of things that I support and I wish that I could be more helpful to the various causes by being a supporter on social media. But, I think you just do what you have to do in order to make sure that everyone is served. All of the people that we work with at the Viroqua Chamber Main Street, it's a really, really diverse crew. So I have to make sure that I'm not alienating any of those people.
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing to me. Is it hard sometimes? Social media to me, it's an extension of a press release all the time.
Sure.
So is it my truest self? No, but that's okay. I think I'm okay with that. It offers a layer of protection, and it also makes those around me feel comfortable. And then I'm fortunate enough to have people in the community who I can chat with, who I trust, who I can be. Authentic is the wrong word because I don't think there's anything that lacks authenticity about what I'm doing on Facebook, but I never take it those 2 extra steps. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I think what I'm hearing you say is it's not that you're creating something that's inauthentic or a layer of inauthenticity. That's a lot of syllables, syllables. But what you're doing is you're not personalizing it necessarily, right? So you're not putting the Nora Rowan Schmidt stamp on it, like this is who I am and this is where I stand. Right. Because you're trying to effectively engage a wider array of people. And as a small business owner, that's the same layer that we walk. Now, there are times when it just seems unavoidable. Right. Because it is a small community and sometimes those lines get crossed. But I think that you and I personally do a fairly good job of trying to keep all those lines untangled and keep the process moving forward, because the greater good is the advocacy of the community in general.
Right.
Yep.
Absolutely. Cool.
I want to ask you a question. Like, do you have role models? Like, when you talk about your executive director, let's say it's an enclave, for lack of a better word. I was going to use cult, but I thought that was a little dark. Your cult of executive directors.
Getting it done.
That's right. Movers and shakers. Like, what characteristics do you look to?
Wow, that's an awesome question. Nobody has ever asked me that before.
It's understandable. When you look like you do right now, it's almost unapproachable.
I'm glad that I'm frightening you. That's really, really awesome.
No, you just look like you know so much. It's amazing. Like, I'm not going to ask her any questions. I'm going to look stupid.
Okay, good. My trick worked.
Exactly.
You know, when I first started in the working world, one of my first positions outside of college was as a marketing director at a public library in Ohio. And my library director, Sue Banks, so Sue, if you're listening, I love you, was my boss and was the very first person who listened to my ideas and gave me the sense that everything is worth a try, even if you fail. So she was only my direct supervisor for about 5 months, and I was 22 years old at the time, but it was the best 5 months of my career at that point because she was a strong woman getting things done who got me to a point where I was okay with taking risks, making mistakes, and her support has kind of continued on via social media and quick phone calls and stuff since then. And she's just a phenomenal person. So I guess my biggest hope in my current role is that at some point there will be some young person that I can inspire enough to make those mistakes and move on in their career and be okay with being human and being effective at the same time. So Sue Banks, rock star.
Killer. That's
Killer.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's such an important point, So much of small business ownership or any business ownership is risk taking, and finding a way to sleep at night, knowing that you're taking incredible risks and really putting yourself out there. It's amazing to have a mentor like Sue that can make you feel like what you're doing matters, number one, but number two, kind of provide a little bit of a framework in which to build your life around. So kudos to you.
Well, what about you?
Heroes, man, or people that I really aspire to. Some of the, I think that there's a couple different pieces for me. When I was growing up, I definitely felt like I lived in a town, Lafarge, is population 775. Actually grew up in the country outside of it. So in the beautiful Kickapoo River Valley, very financially impoverished area. And I had this feeling that, this was probably the darkest spot on earth. If there was anything happening in the universe, it was at least 2 hours away from where I was. And, as a kid, I think now in retrospect, I kind of got my first taste of being a change maker, in the local music scene. I was so moved and motivated by a guy who grew up in Viroqua and went on to do what seemed like impossible things. When I was in 6th grade, 1991, so I'm going to date myself a little bit here. When I was in 6th grade, I was staying in a hotel in Madison with my family because my brother was enrolled at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And my parents were outside of the room and MTV was on, and he said, "Hey, come over here and check this out." And for the first time in my life, I heard Nirvana. It Smells Like Teen Spirit, right?
There it is.
And it was so powerful. And we turned it up, and my dad came flying into the hotel room. We can hear this out in the hallway. What the heck are you doing? And oh my gosh, if you come home looking like that, rah, 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 doing the whole dad thing. So the very next day, with my paper route money, I went to a store and purchased Nirvana Nevermind on tape. The cool part was a guy from Viroqua, Wisconsin, the 54665, produced that record, Butch Vig. And for me, that was this huge eye-opening experience. Like, a guy from this place is doing that in the world. I can do that too.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah. So Over the years, I've gotten to know Butch pretty well. I've gone to LA and stayed with him and kept in good touch with him. As a matter of fact, tomorrow, Garbage plays in Madison, and I'm going to go and hang out with Butch before the show and after the show and just kind of be a Garbage groupie, which is super fun. I think that identity for me was the first like real proving ground, and you can be from these small places, these places that people in the beginning want to write off.
Yep.
From the middle of nowhere, quote unquote. And to be fair, it was a Rolling Stone article when they were showcasing Garbage that the writer put in print that Butch was from a Midwestern farming town. And as a high school kid, I looked at that and it was crushing. Because all I needed to see in print was Viroqua, Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
As a kid who grew up here, it was so much tied into my identity. And that's why I spend a tremendous amount of time like in local schools trying to do what I do. So that way kids, at the very least, when they leave this place, they can point back to the Driftless Cafe and say, oh yeah, I know that guy. He used to come in and talk to me about school lunch, or he used to talk to me about, garden planning, or he used to come up in front of the classroom and tell wildly not funny jokes, to buy time for his classroom presentations. But that identity piece for me is 99% of why I do what I do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah.
And the best part is that if your dad didn't like Nirvana then, you fast forward to 2012 when I was his spin instructor at the Wellness Center, and we were bumping Nirvana, so he got to hear it again.
Oh,
all came around.
He got to hear plenty of it. I think the worst day of my parents' life was when my brother left college, moved to Austin, Texas, and somehow I inherited his whole stereo system. So we're talking 6-disc changers, the whole works, and it was loud. And I had it all in my bedroom, which was awesome. I don't think I left my bedroom for about 2 years after that. It was just, constant music and really it helped formulate, my musical identity and also gave me a perspective that there's a much bigger world out there.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
Is there anything else you want people to know about you, Nora? Outside of your wicked fashion sensibility and, you're a spin instructor.
Not anymore.
You're not anymore. Okay.
No.
Okay. What else?
I don't know.
You don't know. Okay.
Well, what do you think people want to know about us?
I think people want to know, why do you do what you do? Like what you talked a little bit about the veil. You talked about the Facebook and
Mm-hmm.
I think with the Butch Vig analogy, at least you can understand a little bit of like, I am out there to prove to the world that you can be from a small town and still make it and still be relevant in the larger world. Why do you do what you do?
That's sort of evolving.
Yeah.
All the time. So that's a difficult question. I think the main reason that I do what I do is because I like it.
What part of liking it? I mean, like you like it. You like, when we're talking about the putting out the fires, or we're talking about the promotion, or we're talking about some of the heartache involved with taking on big ideas and responsibility.
Uh-huh.
Is there one thing, if you could sift and winnow through it, like, is there one driver?
Well,
it could be my company, and I completely understand.
Yeah, that's absolutely the only reason.
I get to spend time in proximity with Luke, and oh my gosh, is that the best?
It's the only reason. It's been really special to be able to get to know you, obviously. And I'm not so sure that I would do this podcast with anyone else.
Oh,
so,
man.
That being said,
Thanks.
However, why do I do this? I like helping people. I like being able to work in a small community and to be able to see a difference in some of the programming that we have and the types of businesses that we have and how we're assisting businesses. I don't mind the heartache and the difficult conversations, and I also like all of the good stuff. So I think I'm really not sure there's some profound answer other than I just do this because I like it. And I think, my parents always thought I should be a teacher. So I went into lots of different career choices before then, including, as we've discussed before, archaeology.
Yes.
That was my big first plan, to be Indiana Jones. Didn't go so well.
I was going to be Butch Vig. That was my initial career path. It's like, well, I guess, if the blueprint works, why not follow it?
Right. So it all kind of made sense at the time. But yeah, I don't know. I think the fact that I am patient enough to be able to listen to people's needs and also to assist and educate, it's just something that's always been relatively easy for me to do. So
that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. You're listening to what makes Nora Rowan Schmidt, Executive Director of the Viroqua Chamber Main Street, tick, right here on the 54665 podcast.
That sounded very public radio.
Did it?
Yes. Oh my gosh.
I'm really working into this microphone.
Yeah. Right on.
Anything else you want to cover today?
I think we should cover a couple of other important things.
Okay, go ahead. Shoot.
So as a chef who
Yeah.
makes some of the most amazing food that I've ever had in my entire life,
Okay.
what do you like to eat when you're not at the restaurant?
Oh, man.
What do you make for your family?
I love/hate that question.
It's
The
an
reason
important
that
one.
the reason that I kind of hate it is it's so much less interesting than the intricate food that we put together in the restaurant, and if I could, man, so I have 3 children, Silas, who just recently turned 6. I have Benjamin, who's 13, and Ava, who is 14, all of which have wildly varied culinary appreciation, to put it mildly. I mean, really, and with a lot of pregnant pauses. It's like a nightmare. So finding things that work. Whole roasted chickens are a big hit in our house, as is soup. Make a lot of chicken noodle soup.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of quick and easy, and I can fill it full of vegetables. We do a lot of smoothies.
Yeah.
So packing them with kale or other assorted vegetables and fruits, making sure that they get vitamins and minerals. I'm a big one to make sure that my kids get enough protein in their diet because they're all really smart and they're going. Really involved kids, which is not surprising when you can consider, the type of household that they grow up in. So, a lot for us is based on convenience. We like to eat comfort food. And at home, there have been a few times where I've come home and tried dishes on for the kids. The most recent one was I was working on a lamb ragu with a polenta base, which was really, really good. So rich, and the lamb had been braised and was soft and beautiful and accented with herbs and a little bit of chilies, and served that with 2 beautifully seared scallops, and was playing with it at home, and the kids didn't touch it.
Of course they didn't.
Of course not. And so I was trying to find new ways to remarket it to the 6-year-old. It's like mac and cheese, but kind of smushed up. And, I don't know. We were going on and on with it. Finally, I just ended up making toast.
Yep, there it is.
So yeah, at home we do a lot of comfort food. To be frank though, as a family, we spend a pretty large budget, or part of our budget, just eating out. On a day like yesterday, which Sunday ends up being the only day that we have off together. We make a trip into La Crosse, or sometimes Madison, or sometimes Milwaukee, to do adventures as a family. So we caught a movie yesterday. We celebrated a birthday, and we ate some really nice lunch at the Charmont Hotel. So burgers and a steak. It was nice.
Yeah, that's
Lovely.
great.
How about you? How about you? What do you eat?
Well,
You got this thing, this bent for Southeast Asian food. I know that about you.
right?
You're a huge connoisseur of pho.
Yep.
You have some hole in the wall places in Madison that you like to hit up for your Vietnamese fix.
Yep.
But what do you eat at home?
If I had time to be a creative chef at home, I would every single day.
Yeah,
I
sure.
love cooking.
Yep.
I love it.
I think a lot of people feel that way. It's like an unwind.
It totally is. It's so awesome. My kids are not into anything that I'm into
Right. Exactly.
because they're 6 and 7.
Yeah.
And they like peanut butter
Yeah.
and toast and
Peanut butter
cereal.
toast is good.
Yeah. So, yeah. If I'm not eating at the Driftless Cafe, which is always my go-to when we're in town, I'm always hitting up some spot in Madison where I can get pad thai or pho or something like that. So,
Cool. Yeah. Before the garbage show tomorrow, we have I have a dinner slot like open, and
yeah.
I got a couple places that I definitely want to check out.
There's a bunch of new restaurants.
In Madison, like for a while when I cooked in Madison, from 2003 to 2011, it was seriously, statistically, the second highest number of restaurants per capita in the United States. So it's a very competitive restaurant market there. For if it's 300,000 people that live there, lots of restaurants. I think it was like over 300. So it was definitely like one restaurant for every 10 people, which is nuts. But it's always constantly evolving and shaping, and that's kind of one of the reasons actually why I was really motivated to own my restaurant in a community outside of Madison. I thought that there was more longevity in doing it in a small town, and the economic impact could be better understood in doing it in a community like Viroqua. Plus, I got the best farmers in the world right here.
Right.
Second highest concentration of organic farmers in any county in the United States. That is Vernon County. So
It's amazing.
It's nuts. I a lot of times when people ask how you come up with motivation for a particular dish, my analogy is simply to look at it like I was a painter, right? Imagine you're Bob Ross. Okay.
He might have had glasses like this.
He might have had glasses like that, but can we, for 1 second, can we shift into Bob Ross mode?
Okay, we're shifting.
Is your voice calmer, softer? Do you feel more relaxed? There we go.
Okay.
Now, we have a beautiful blank canvas here. Think of that like your plate. Exactly. We're just going to put a happy little tree here. No, I like to say that when we're making menus at the Driftless Cafe, we want to get the best paints possible. And we feel that if we assemble the best paints, in this analogy, those are the ingredients, it's pretty easy to put together masterpieces. That is a real shift from most chefs' approach. A lot of chefs will look at a dish and say, this is the finished product that I want. With us, we want to take those ingredients and in a lot of cases manipulate them as little as possible. And let those flavors and pairings compare and contrast and put that on a plate. The beauty in that, and what we've found, or what I've found as a seasonal farm-to-table chef, is it's really hard to screw up food that all comes from the same season, right? Let's fall rate, or a fall menu. We have sage, we have apples, we have rosemary, we have squash. That pairs really well with cheese. It pairs really well with wine. It pairs really well with heavier proteins. So it's pretty easy actually if you just pay attention to what's coming in. The stretch for me is always the middle of winter. we'll have like 7 root vegetables to work with for about 5 months here in Wisconsin. So we start to lose our mind a little bit when you get into February and March. And the funny story in the cafe is I have a sous chef who ramps. They're the wild alliums that come up here in the forest in the spring. They're like the first shot of green outside of like the watercress that we can get from springs. But they have a very, very strong garlic aroma. And the sous chef a couple years ago was so excited for something green and fresh that he ate like 5 of them raw. And he reeked like garlic for 5 days. It's like, oh my gosh, dude, you literally need to go home and take a shower mid-shift because this is terrible. But
it's enthusiasm.
It's enthusiasm, exactly. We're just so excited. We've manipulated the heck out of those 7 ingredients through the course of the entire winter, and it's time for a rebirth. So yeah. Any other brain busters for me, Nora?
Brain busters? I don't think so. Not today.